Hi, and welcome to Just Sharika. So on today's video, we have a special interview with Mr. Dwayne Berbick, Corporate and Public Affairs Manager at the National Housing Trust, who will explain the process of home ownership through the NHT. So if you are watching and you are interested in acquiring real estate in Jamaica, be sure to watch this video to the end. But before we get into the discussion, I'm going to ask Mr. Berbick to just tell us a little about himself and his role at the NHT.
Okay, the little bit about myself part is hard because I'm as boring as they come, nothing interesting here. But as you pointed out, I'm the NHT's Corporate and Public Affairs Manager. So my role is to keep our stakeholders engaged and informed. It's a little bit of corporate communication. It's a little bit of stakeholder engagement, meeting with our different interest groups, whether they are our developers or mortgagors or contributors, and just sharing as much information with them as to what the NHT is doing and taking back from them as well concerns, recommendations, suggestions that the NHT can look at and implement. So that's the role in a nutshell. Yes.
Okay, sounds interesting and a whole lot of work. So before we start, though, I just want to say thank you for availing yourself for this interview. I know you've been very busy, and I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to sit down and have this conversation with us. All right.
And thanks very much for inviting us as well. We appreciate these opportunities where we get to share information. We do it every day, but we realize that even at our best, we still are not reaching everybody. So we appreciate channels and platforms that allow us to share even more. So thanks for having us as well.
Thank you so much. So most of my viewers are very interested in acquiring homes and home ownership and purchasing land to build their houses. So I'm sure that most of them will be very intrigued and interested in what this video will be about and the discussion. So we're going to jump right into it. So I have my list of questions as pulled together by myself and a number of my subscribers. So you will see me from time to time looking down to ensure that I get across all of them. All right. So
Sure.
We are aware that the NHT was established in 1976 to provide housing for Jamaicans. So let us start from the beginning. So who really qualifies for an NHT loan?
Well, the NHT Act says once you're a Jamaican, once you're working in Jamaica, you're between the ages of 18 and 65, you're earning at least minimum wage, whether you're employed by a company or self-employed, you must be contributing to the NHT. So that's the very beginning. It starts with who is a contributor. And as I said, once you're between the ages of 18 and 65, you're earning at least minimum wage, you must be contributing to the NHT. So who qualifies for a loan now? Any individual who would have contributed to the NHT for at least 52 weeks, which is 1 year. So once you would have satisfied that first eligibility criteria is that you would have contributed to the NHT for at least 52 weeks, 1 year. And that doesn't have to be one consistent 52-week period. It can be 6 months this year, 6 months last year. Once the NHT is able to account for 52 weeks of contributions over a period of time, then you would be eligible where that is concerned. In addition, however, you, at the time of loan application, you must be a current NHT contributor. And what we mean by a current NHT contributor is that within the last 6 months, you must have made 3 months worth of contributions being paid over on your behalf. If it is that you are a PAYE individual, meaning a company employs you and make those contributions on your behalf, or in the case of you being self-employed, you must have made 2 quarterly payments in the last 6 months to be able to qualify for a loan from the NHT. Again, you must be between the ages of 18 and 70 to get a loan. And that 70 is a recent adjustment because previously we stopped borrowing relations at age 65. But we realized that persons are living longer,
Right.
persons are working longer as well. And so within the last year and a half, we would have made an adjustment to the upper age limit as it relates to borrowing, and we move that from 65 to 70. So those are the basic, I would call, eligibility criteria. Again, there are other factors that we'll bear in mind as to how much you get to borrow, and I'm sure we'll get into a discussion about that. So I won't jump into those variables just yet, but those would be the basic loan eligibility requirements.
Okay, so just to wrap that up, in order to qualify, you need to be a Jamaican between the age of 18 and 17. Previously, it was 65, but it's now increased to age 70. And they need to be contributing at least for a year, 52 weeks. And you did mention it does not have to be 52 consecutive weeks. Once you can count them up and it adds to the 52, then that person would qualify, correct?
That's correct.
All right, so thank you so much for that. So this would lead into my other question that I have here. I have a subscriber who has been contributing for some years back, but for some reason, I think she lost her job and she was not contributing. So for her to become eligible, she would now need to come to the NHT to start contributing again, and you would add up all of those years that she would have contributed before. So it would not be a loss based on what you just said.
No, it would not be a loss. At the time of loan application, we would expect her to be current, meaning 3 months of contributions, or as we say, 13 weeks, which generally equates to about 3 months. So once she starts making contributions again and satisfy that 13-week/3 months period, she would become eligible to access a loan after that time.
Okay, all right. So thank you so much for that clarification. In terms of persons who are Jamaicans, because you did mention Jamaicans. So what if I am a Jamaican, but I am currently living overseas? How do I qualify myself to obtain a loan from the NHT?
Well, the NHT has another category of contributors. Well, to look at our category of contributors, we have our PAYE. You're employed by someone and that person makes the contributions on your behalf. You have persons who are self-employed. I believe that's self-explanatory. You're your own boss. And so you make your NHT contributions on a quarterly basis for yourself. And then the third category now we have is our voluntary contributors. And by voluntary, we mean that they don't have to make NHT contributions, but they choose to. And this is where our individuals or Jamaicans living overseas are concerned. I must clarify, though, that there are 2 categories of Jamaicans living overseas. We have those individuals who have perhaps gone on short-term work, or they're overseas not as a result of a change in citizenship or a change as it relates to immigration status. Those individuals are still considered self-employed and would fall in the quarterly payment group. Right. But no, the Jamaicans who know you're a green card holder, you're a citizen, those individuals can register as what we call voluntary contributors and be able to access their NHT benefits just the same as anyone else. So we have a simple form, a 1-page form that we ask those individuals to fill out, and they make their payments on a monthly basis, rather. 3% of their income on a monthly basis that they make to the NHT as contribution payments. If they have never contributed to the NHT ever before, it is 2 years before they become eligible for a loan. If they have contributed to the NHT for a 52-week period before leaving Jamaica, because we have individuals who would have like migrated, etc., and would have been paying NHT contributions before leaving, then it would just be 1 year for those individuals. So after a year of contributing again, they would become eligible for an NHT loan as well.
Okay, so that's good news for persons who are living overseas, whether or not they started contributing from here. But just so if they have not started, if they didn't start when they were here and they're now living overseas, they need 2 years worth of contribution. But if you were employed here and you were paying your NHT contributions, you only need to contribute for 1 year.
That's correct, yes.
Right. So that's good to know. So persons here and overseas, once you are Jamaicans, you can contribute and benefit from the National Housing Trust.
Yes, and I'll add it's extended Jamaicans as well. So you don't necessarily have to be born here. Your parents could be of Jamaican birth, but you, as an example, perhaps were born overseas, you're of Jamaican descent. Then the NHT also considers the broader diaspora when it comes to the classification of who Jamaicans are and who can contribute to the NHT.
Okay, that's good to know. So once, if you're from Jamaican parents and you're living overseas and you are interested in buying real estate in Jamaica, you can contribute to the National Housing Trust and benefit from all the things that they have right there, correct?
That's correct.
Beautiful. All right, so I guess we can move on to the next question. You did mention eligibility, right? What is an eligibility letter and how do you go about obtaining one?
The eligibility letter is sometimes interchangeably called a pre-approval letter, which pretty much details your how much the NHT will lend you at what interest rate and over what loan tenure. And it's a document that I know most realtors ask their clients to get, and it's very important because when it gets to putting in an offer for a sale, it's kind of like an indication that, hey, I'm serious about this, that I'm not just saying I like your house and I want to buy it, but I've gone a step further to assess my financial status. And that's why it's even more important. The realtor wants to know that you can afford the property you're interested in, or if they're helping you to search, they know within which parameters they are looking. Your eligibility letter doesn't say you can take on a mortgage of $15 million and you have the realtor out there looking for a $30 million property. You're wasting your time your time as well, because the financial institution is not going to approve such a mortgage. So it's a really important document that helps to guide the relationship and guides the purchasing process in the early stages. How you can access that letter from the NHT, the NHT would require three recent pay slips. We want to see your NIS as well and your TRN and proper identification for you. Once you're able to furnish us with those, then an eligibility letter can be prepared for you. I must point out though that it takes time to prepare an eligibility letter. So if you're really not in the market looking, you don't necessarily require an eligibility letter. You just want to know your affordability. And for that, you can always use our mortgage calculator on our website nht.gov.jm. The same information that's on the eligibility letter you will get through the mortgage calculator. So if you're just interested, you're not yet looking, you just want to know how much you will qualify for, use our mortgage calculator. But when you're serious now and you're in the market and you want your letter to give to your realtor, or when you identify a property, you want to hand that letter over to the vendor, then give us those documents and we'll have one prepared for you.
All right, so a quick question though, because I know that the eligibility letter is a document that can show your, I guess, purchasability, is that such a word, what you can afford? So it outlines the amount of money that the NHT will lend you based on how much you're qualified to get based on age, I guess, and your income, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
All right. So you did mention your mortgage calculator, but for those out there who are not so tech savvy, is it possible for someone to phone in to get that information?
Insofar as which one? They just want to know.
Right, they want to know how much they qualify for.
Yes, they can, but I would tell you though that mortgage calculator is very user-friendly. Very user-friendly. It will just ask you for your age, it asks you for your income, it asks you some basic questions. Have you borrowed from the NHT before? Are you a public sector worker? Because that will impact your interest rate. Just about 5 or 6 questions, really.
Right.
And once you fill that out, it does all the calculation. It tells you how much you qualify for each benefit type. It tells you what is the loan tenure, how long that loan will last. It gives you a good idea as to what your monthly payback is as well.
Okay.
And that's something you can always just print and walk with yourself and keep it for yourself. So I always encourage persons to use it. But if you're not tech savvy and you're having a challenge, we have a great customer service team. Of course, you can always reach out to us for some assistance.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that. So in terms of the eligibility letter, is there an expiry date to the letter?
Yes, it's generally valid for about a 6-month period.
6 months.
And right, because variables which impact the calculations on the eligibility letter can change. One of the variables being age, because age impacts how long you get to repay the loan. So if my birthday is in the middle of the year, how much my eligibility letter will tell me in June. Well, my birthday is actually in July. So say, for example, I get an eligibility letter in June. By July, August, September, if I've passed a birthday, the variables would change a little bit. So we don't keep them having a very long shelf life as well, because income is also another variable that we look at. And if you would have gotten like a pay increase, knock on wood, within the year, that will also impact the calculations on it. So a 6-month period is how long they're valid for.
Okay. All right. So just to recap what was just said. So in order to obtain your eligibility letter, you can, before you even get to that process, you can actually use the NHT's mortgage calculator. So I will leave the link to your website down below so persons can actually utilize that system. So you can go on the NHT's website, use the mortgage calculator to calculate the amount of money that the NHT is willing to lend you based on your age and your income and other questions that will be asked. And if you need the eligibility letter itself, if you're serious and ready to start shopping for that house or that piece of land, if you're ready for that eligibility letter, you will need your last 3 pay slips, your NIS card, TRN card, and your ID. All right. So we're going to move on to the next question on the list. I know a lot of persons have been concerned about your point system. Me, myself, I'm not so au fait, or I don't understand the point system very well. So can you explain what is the NHT's point system and how does it benefit your contributors?
It's called the Priority Index Entitlement System, called PI for short. And it's a mechanism through which the NHT selects individuals for NHT scheme solutions, being either land or a housing unit. And how it works is that for each year an individual contributes to the NHT awards 20 points to that individual. Remember, we spoke about that 52-week period. So for each 52 weeks, you get 20 points. In addition to that, at the time of application, the NHT awards an additional number of points ranging from between a low of 70 to a high of 110. Who gets 70? Our highest income earners, those individuals who earn $42,001 per week and above. And who gets the 110 is our lowest income earners. Those are persons who earn between minimum wage and $15,000 per week. And when you see the NHT now advertises development, individuals apply, and then individuals are ranked in that priority index entitlement system based on the number of points they have. The person with the highest number of points, that person falls what we call at the top of the queue. They get first preference. They're not guaranteed the unit because they have to do a loan interview and look at the other variables, but they get first preference. And the NHT ranks individuals, as I said, according to points, and we start the interview process and we go down until we find the requisite number of individuals in the queue who can take up the NHT solutions.
Okay. So based on the point system then, for persons who contribute longer, or the more years you have, will put you in a better standing to acquire.
Yes, it does.
Okay. All right. So I think you partially answered my next question as it relates to the point system and how it protects the most vulnerable in our society, which are our persons who are earning minimum wage, because you did mention the point system that is skewed. You have a 70 point system and a 110, and you award most to persons who are earning less.
Right.
So this is one way that you support.
Right, because if you look at it under regular circumstances, the highest income earner will always be able to afford a unit. And so that's why we introduced the pie system, because there's no one variable that we can use. If we use income alone, it means then all the housing solutions at the NHT bills will automatically, based off affordability, go to one end of the market. If you reverse that and you say, okay, low income earners only, then again, the other income bands would get shut out. So the point system looks at a combination of years of contribution. It looks at years of contribution. It looks at income as well. And the general selection system also looks at proximity to where that individual is to the development. So say, for example, we advertise for development in Manchester. We would again give priority to individuals who either live in Manchester or work in Manchester.
Okay.
So that's the priority index entitlement system. It looks at all of those variables: location, income, years of contribution, because to use any one variable would put individuals
another person at a disadvantage.
Notwithstanding though, Sharika, we understand that there are some even with a system that looks at those three variables, it still can end up being biased towards particular groups. And so the NHT has a tool that we call a special benefits order that allows us to balance things again, to flip it from being too biased towards one demographic or one income group. And so what we find is that the special benefits order allows the NHT to reserve units within NHT schemes for specific categories of individuals. For these categories of individuals, we have persons who have a disability.
Right.
We have our civil servants, our police, our teachers, our doctors, our nurses. We have as well our young adults, which are individuals under the age of 40. The NHT reserves units in schemes for these categories of individuals because we understand that we need to have a more balanced and a bit more equitable system. And so it corrects some of the inherent biases that may be perceived in the points and the pie system.
I do like what you just said. equitable? Because I
Yes.
have been hearing a number of conversations, and I try not to get myself involved because I did not understand the point system. So I'm really glad that you are here and you're clarifying that the point system is not to keep anybody out, and you're trying to attain that position where you're creating equitable solutions so everybody can benefit. So you did mention that the NHT has is it called the pie? You said the pie? The pie?
That's a general system. This
Right.
general selection system is called the pie system. Yes.
Right. And you reserve housing solutions for persons who are young persons, for persons who have disabilities, for low income earners, because I always hear a person saying that, oh, the NHT is not for young people. And you are always awarding houses to only selected kind of persons. So I'm really happy that you are here and you are explaining the process and you are debunking the myths and the misconceptions that are out there that is not so. You do it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I understand where that school of thought would come from too,
Right.
because the reality is the demand for housing is great.
It is.
It's great. So in any NHT development, there are so many and no more housing solutions. And I'll give an example of the challenge that we have. When you advertise for 200 units and you get applications in excess of 7,000,
wow.
You're going to have 200 happy people, but you're also going to have 6,800 people who are very upset with you. But so you'll find within that 6,800 the low income person who says, no, NHT only I give them rich friend. You'll find the young person who will say, NHT only I give the old people.
Right.
You'll find the civil servant who say, NHT now look out for we and I was slave and we work so hard for the government. So you're going to find dissatisfied persons in almost after almost every selection mechanism, because the number of solutions that we put on the market vis-a-vis the demand for them.
The demand is high.
They're not singing the same tune. And that's something we're very much aware of. So even us at the NHT would have ramped up our housing program over the last 4 years, moving from averaging 2,500 houses a year to in the region of 7,000 a year. So and if you follow the news and you follow the NHT, you would realize that within the last few months, almost every month, there are 2 or 3 housing developments that the NHT is pushing on the market. Compare that to 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago, you would probably see 1 or 2 or 3 a year. Now you're seeing more opportunities, and that's as a result of our understanding of where the demand is. So we internally are pushing ourselves to deliver more as well. But we do understand that it's going to take a little while before the supply catches up with the demand. And so we continue to pursue creative strategies and creative measures, partnerships with our developers, partnerships with our employers to see how we can bridge that divide. But it's going to take us a little time. And so we ask for just a little bit of patience and understanding as we get through this.
And I do agree with that. I have seen a number of units that you have been pushing out. I'm on your website almost every week. Yes, I'm a little stalker for the NHT website. So I go on it almost every week and I look to see when you're releasing something. And then, I would do a video to let my viewers know that the NHT is coming out with this. Be sure to have your documents ready.
We can't pay you, but we thank you.
That's a pleasure. I find pleasure in doing it. So you don't need to pay me. The thank you is fine. And doing it, I enjoy doing it. And I am happy when I see persons jumping on it. They go and they submit their applications. A few persons have told me that they have gotten through. And I'm very happy for that. Yes. So I know you just mentioned about the demand and not being able to satisfy everyone because the demand for housing solutions are so high. So I will jump into my next question because a lot of persons are eyeing the NHT homes. And I do know that you offer 100% financing for NHT schemes. That's correct. Is it that all the NHT schemes you offer 100% financing? Can you clarify that?
All up to a maximum of 15 million. So
Up
there's
to
a ceiling of 15 million. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So do you have housing that costs more than 15 million?
Pricing is a matter of different variables, to include construction costs, to include the cost of land, to include you should know location.
Yes.
So in certain in our more urban areas, that's where you probably will find something above 50 million. It's a rarity. I've only, in my NHT lifetime, I've only seen units costing above 15 million, perhaps twice.
I've never seen any. I've missed all of them.
Twice I've ever seen it. Yes, right. So it rarely ever happens.
Right.
But yeah.
Which is a plus for persons out there who are buying. It shows that NHT is thriving. NHT is thriving for affordability and ensuring that the house that you put on the market, that the average person can actually afford. So that's a good thing to know, and you provide 100% financing for those who qualify for that 100%. So can you explain us a little bit who would qualify to obtain 100% financing through the NHT?
It's hard to tell you, but if we backtrack the conversation a little bit, the variables will look at age and income. So we would have to factor those in to be better able to calculate what's kind of like a sweet spot as to who will qualify. The guiding principle, though, is that it's a loan, it's a mortgage, it's subject to your ability to repay. Right. So I know sometimes individuals will say, okay, you only cap me at 6.5. Or even within the 6.5, not everybody gets that maximum loan limit. And the variables of age, the variables of income come in. And you have to understand that we have to be responsible in how we discharge mortgages, because it's foolhardy to give a $50 million mortgage to an individual who all the variables are telling you that they can only take on a mortgage of $7 million. Right. What happens immediately is that you give them the loan this month, next month, they're in default. So it would be irresponsible to be giving out, mortgages beyond what individuals can afford. So I would just always like to remind persons that, remember, it is a loan, and a loan is conditioned, on your ability to repay. So not everybody will get that 15 million. And that's where that 100% financing, or that 6.5. And that's where our mortgage calculator comes in again, because if you want to know, put in those variables of age and income, and it will tell you where exactly you are in that grand scheme of things.
Okay. All right. So again, as he just said, you can use the mortgage calculator to clarify the amount of money. If you qualify for that 100% financing, you can utilize that calculator. All right, so we're going to jump right into the next question. Back on the issue that you mentioned a while ago of being able to meet the demand, because a lot of persons have been just eyeing the NHT schemes. And I guess because you offer 100% financing, so I think persons are trying to capitalize on that, but you will not be able to meet the demand for everybody right away. So persons are normally encouraged to utilize the open market. So how does that partnership work with the NHT though, and private persons, private developers, and so on? How do you manage that partnership?
We have a great partnership with our joint finance mortgage participants. The program is Joint Finance Mortgage Program, JFMP for short, and it is a one-stop shop experience between the NHT and a total of, I believe, at this point, about 11 other mortgage institutions. So it is for the individual who wants to access additional funding to what the NHT will lend you. So say you see a property that costs 12 million. You come into the NHT confirms that you can get your 6.5, and now you're going to another mortgage institution to access that additional 5.5 that you will need. You don't have to come to the NHT and apply for the 6.5 and go to the institution and apply for the 5.5. You just go to that institution, let them know you want to be a part of the Joint Finance Mortgage Program, you want to access your NHT benefit, and they do all the processing for you. They will reach out to the NHT and they will handle the processing of that NHT benefit for you. And it's a similar arrangement when it comes to repayment as well, that you don't have to pay the 6.5 at NHT and the 5.5 at the other institution. Right. You make one payment to the institution and we sort out on the back end. So the customer doesn't have to worry about that any at all. So that's one of the good programs that we've had as a result of partnership with other players in the mortgage market. Yeah.
Okay, so if I see a property on the open market that I'm interested in purchasing, and say the property costs $10 million, and I am qualified based on my NHT eligibility letter for the full 6.5, I can go to one of your partners, and can you give like probably a few of them?
I'm either going to give you none or all, and I'm going to try and give you all because I don't want to disadvantage anyone.
Right, and I don't want you to leave anyone.
So there's BNS, the bank, and there's BNS Building Societies. That's two. There's Sagicor, the bank, and then there's Sagicor, the other arm of the institutions. So that's four there. Those are the harder ones. There's First Caribbean International Bank. There is Jamaica National. There's Victoria Mutual. There's First Global Bank. There's JMMB. I'm at 9, and I'm drawing a blank.
I don't think the viewers will punish you for that. NCB.
And there's NCB 10, and oh boy, who am I forgetting? I think it may be 10 and not 11 because I don't think I'm forgetting anybody.
Okay.
If I am, it's inadvertent. But there's always a list of them on our website.
There's a list on the website. Beautiful. Okay.
Yeah. So just look for Joint Finance Mortgage Program under loans.
Beautiful.
And you'll see the list there.
Okay. So persons can go to that list and they can look at your partners to choose who they can go to get that additional source of funds to purchase that property. And as you said before, once they go to that partner will ensure that they manage all the aspects of this purchase. So they don't have to be running to the bank, then run into NHT, because everything will be done at the partnering entity, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Right. Beautiful. All right, so let me see what's the next question I have on the list. All right, so I do know that for the NHT, the max that you lend for acquiring a house is 6.5 million, correct?
That's correct, yes.
All right, and you would have said this earlier, that as persons are aware by now, that this amount that you get is dependent on a number of factors. So it's not a broad scheme for everybody that everybody will get this 6.5. So let us be clear on that. So it's a number of factors that will determine whether or not you get the 6.5 or whatever figure that you will get. All right, so I just want persons to know that not everybody gonna get the 6.5. So some variables that will be used is your age, your income. Is gender a factor as well?
Not at all.
No. Oh, because I normally hear they say men are high risk.
Really?
Yes.
Actually, you know, if I think about our mortgage portfolio, there's a slight lean, and I say slight lean towards us having more female mortgages than males, actually.
Yeah, because more women buy properties.
It's not a significant difference. I think it's probably about a 51 to 49%, but we have slightly more female mortgages than male mortgages, actually. Yeah, but no, gender doesn't impact in the calculation.
Okay. Hint, men. Yeah, buying more houses. What's going on? What's going on? All right, so we can move quickly into the next question. And based on the point system, you did hint a little bit on it. The point system and how you cater to persons with disability, because I do know a few persons who have varying disabilities and they wanted to know how the NHT, you did mention a program, but could you restate the name of the program that you have in place for persons living with disability and how they can come and benefit from the NHT?
Okay, well, it's not a specific program. What we do is within our schemes, there is a certain number of units that we allocate in consultation with the Council for Persons with Disabilities. And it's not just allocating the units, but the discussion and conversation and engagement goes way beyond that, insofar as we allow the council to even come and select the units. Because of course, when you look at a broad development, you have to bear certain variables in mind as it relates to especially access. So we allow the council to even select, okay, where within we have 10 units in this development for your membership. Where are the ideal units that would, you know, work well for your membership based on the different challenges that they are experiencing. So that's the kind of relationship. So we reserve a certain number, and individuals can access them once they are registered with the council for persons with disabilities. We'll write to the council, we'll tell them that, hey, we're doing a development in this parish, we have 10 reserved, put this information out across your membership, have them apply, and those 10 won't go to anybody else. You come and select which 10 you want, and you know the selection process will take care of that. Beyond that as well, we give persons with disabilities a 2% reduction in their interest rate. So say you qualify under normal circumstances for a 4% mortgage from the NHT, by virtue of being an individual with a disability, we will take 2 percentage points off that. Actually, since last year, we took that a step further as well, and we've now extended this facility to the parents as well of children who have a disability. They now get that 2% reduction. So you could start at 4 and come down to 2, and you could start at 2 and come down to 0.
Okay.
Yes. In addition as well, the NHT has a disability grant of $150,000 that we make available to individuals who are mortgagors who have a disability, or individuals who are mortgagors who have persons with a disability living in the household. Once that individual is registered with the Council for Persons with Disabilities, you can come in and access that $150,000 grant. And that is really just to retrofit the property to make it a bit more friendly for the person with the disability. And I know individuals have used it to do various things. Persons have used it to put in ramps. Persons who probably are confined to wheelchairs have used it to lower light switches a little bit, so you know, and lower different elements of home a little bit so they are within reach. I know persons who have children who are autistic, they've used that to put like rails in the bathroom, so in certain, you know, you carrying out certain functions a little bit more comfortable, right? So that's the purpose of that grant, really. And as I said, it's a grant. It's so
you don't have to pay that money back. That's free money.
That's correct.
Beautiful. I think we all love free money.
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't, right? All right. So next question though, for persons who are interested, and we're still a little bit on the point system, for persons who are the older sets, persons over 50 but under the age of 70 and have never acquired a home, would have been throwing NHT contribution for a number of years. What system do you have in place to benefit those persons who are not so young, but want to acquire a house?
Give me 1 second, let me plug in my charger. I'm back with you. All right. All right. So the NHT understands that life happens, and even with the best of intentions, that individuals may not have been able to pursue their home ownership goal at the point they would have wanted, and perhaps they're doing this a little bit later in life. Actually, when we look at when we look at our mortgage portfolio, what we find is that the average individual is averaging in age around 43, 44 in terms of being at the time that they purchase a home. And that's something the NHT has been trying to bring down. And we did a campaign last year to do that in terms of encouraging persons to pursue this a little bit sooner.
Right.
But we do understand that notwithstanding, there are some individuals based on their circumstances who just couldn't.
Right.
And so once you're 55 and over and you're a first-time mortgager, the NHT gives you a 2% reduction in your interest rate. Again, you could start at 4 and come down to 2, start at 2 and come down to 0. In addition to that as well, the NHT has a program called Parent Assist,
right,
where a parent and a child can pursue, one legally adopted or biological child can pursue home ownership together. In many instances, it is often sold as the parent assisting the child, but in truth and in fact, sometimes it could be very well the opposite as well, that it is a child who is in fact assisting the parent. So once that parent and child can always partner and access a NHT loan again. And one of the good things that we did with that program last year is to generally 2 individuals co-applying have individual stake in the mortgage. So my mom, for example, say my mom is 60, I'm 30. She would only get 10 years up to age 70 to repay, whereas I'm at 30, I would get 40 years up to age 70 to repay. What the NHT did over the last year is that we would now calculate both mortgages using the younger age, which would be in this example I'm giving you, 30. The child's 30. So instead of having one mortgage being 40 and 10, both mortgages would now be calculated at 40 years to repay. And that's a very, very big thing, because a longer loan tenure translates into smaller, more manageable monthly payments. So through a program like that, we find that parents and children can always partner and pursue that home ownership goal together as well.
All right, and that's so beautiful. So, but there's a downside I'm looking at it though, and I would want for you to explain, because I know there's normally a challenge. So if I should assist my parent to acquire a property and know that my name is on that title, what if down the line I decide to get a house of my own? Would that prove to be a challenge, given that my name is already on a title?
It would be a challenge, not because your name is on the title, but that you use your NHT benefit already, and you would have invested it in that property. On that topic, though, that you would have indicated, I know it's a concern for some individuals whose parents would have put their names on titles for estate planning purposes. And now they're adults and they're being told, yeah, you're a homeowner. Legally, you are. Your name is on the title, so legally you are a homeowner. But the NHT understands those circumstances, that it's really for estate planning purposes, and the child really has no interest. It could be you're just the oldest child and there are 4 or 5 of you. You don't know who mommy and daddy going to leave the house to. It's not guaranteed to be yours. So in those instances, we just generally ask the child in this case to put it in writing that, hey, my name is on a title. It's for estate planning purposes. My parents did it. I have no interest in the property. It's just for security purposes. And the NHT does not hold it against a child insofar as that individual will be able to access their NHT benefit just the same as anybody else.
Okay, just the same as anybody else. Okay, that's good to know, because I've heard persons who are actually in similar positions. Their parents would have purchased a property, which is a good thing to have your name on a title. Don't get it wrong. It's a good thing to have your name on a title for a house. But they're concerned when they are ready to purchase their own property that, you probably will turn them down. And you're saying that it's a no once it was used for estate planning purposes, and they can show evidence in the form of a letter.
Right.
That
just put it in writing.
That would they need a lawyer for anything like that, or a JP or something?
No, once they put it in writing, and include it as part of the general loan application process, that will suffice.
Okay. All right.
I must point out though that there's a difference between now the child who has inherited a house and you're living at the house and at your house. That's a different story.
You can't get any loan from NHT then.
You can get a loan from NHT to improve on that property.
Mm-hmm.
But you know how much you get, it would be for home, you would be capped at the home improvement loan amount, which is 2.5 million. Okay. So, you know, different. We take each case on its own merits, right. and we assist accordingly.
Okay. So once they come in and they explain the situation that they are in, you will provide the necessary guidance.
That's correct, yes.
All right, so another question on the point system, and I think this is the last question on the point system. Can the points be transferred? So I already have a house and I am not interested in buying another house, but I have been contributing to the NHT. I have my little sister now who just turned 20 and she's interested in buying a property. Can I give my sister my points?
So parents can pass on points to children.
Uh-huh. Is it my internet? All right, so you are saying that I can pass on to my sister?
No, but you and your sister, any two individuals can co-apply to purchase a property. But as it relates to transferring points only at the moment, and let me say that we are an evolving institution, we never started out with all these policies and grants and benefits that we are at today. But as at today, when I speak with you, only parents can pass on points to children under parent assist program. But any two individuals can always co-apply. They don't have to necessarily be blood relative. But of course, you have to make sure who you're getting involved with, because it's not a financial and economic decision, it's a legal decision as well. And you want to ensure that you do your due diligence before you undertake any such kind of arrangement.
Right, that's true. So you just mentioned, you said any two? So three?
Any two individuals can
only two? Only two?
Pardon?
Only two, not three?
Only two. Under the Joint Finance Mortgage Program, more than two can pool resources to buy a property, but only two can use their NHT benefit.
Oh, okay. So more than two can, but only two can use their NHT if you're using the joint finance, which is through your partners. Right.
So then because at that point it's more so the loan underwriting terms for that PAN institution that governs the arrangement. The NHT only verifies your qualification and say yes. But on any, let me try and use a legal term, any security that the NHT is standing on, only two NHT mortgagors can use their benefit for that.
Okay. All right. So for my next question, you would have answered some aspect of it as it relates to interest rates.
Right.
Can you explain a little bit more on your interest rate? I think you're now 4% as your highest?
4% at the highest for persons who earn 42,001 and above. The income band below that, which is persons who earn between $30,001 and $42,000 per week, those individuals will pay their mortgages at 2%. And the other income bands, which is 15,001 to 30,000, and between minimum wage and 15,000 per week, those individuals will pay their loans at an interest rate of 0%. And that's significant.
I think you need to say that again. The 0% one especially, yes.
Zero. And
there's
actually,
0%.
When you look at our interest rate structure, Sharika, and we look at the other variables that I spoke about, if you're a public sector worker, you get a 1% discount. If you're a person with a disability, you get a 2% discount.
Mm-hmm.
If you are 55 and over, you get a 2% discount.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at all of that, if I should pull up the NHT's interest rate structure, bearing in mind all of those calculations and variables, what you realize is majority of our mortgages get an interest rate of zero. Zero, not even. Very few people end up at 4.
That's
Majority of the individuals,
to say. Yes.
There are built-in mechanisms, what we like to call enablers, because we understand that they're different parts of the pie. And I know many times persons look at the loan limit and say 6.5, that's all they give me. Really? What 6.5 can do NHT? And I make a point where that is concerned. The NHT's loan limit is 6.5 for a very good reason. Because if tomorrow the NHT decides that it's going to increase its loan limit from 6.5 to even 7.5, what we find happen every time that the NHT adjusts its loan limit is that the prices of housing go up. And so we have to be careful that we're not giving to you with one hand in terms of a higher loan limit,
taking it back,
and the market takes it away back with higher prices. And so I know we get a little beat up sometimes for that, to say 6.5 can't do nothing. But trust me, it's 6.5 for a very good reason. Because if we start, if we adjust that 6.5 upward, you think house price is bad? They would only get worse.
But it was,
we're not a regulator. In that NHT doesn't regulate the housing market. But what the NHT understands is that it impacts it. And many of the players in the market look at what the NHT does and adjust themselves accordingly. So the challenge we're having now, as it relates to an extent, different factors come into play, but the challenge that we're having, part of the challenge we're having as it relates to prices, is because of the adjustments that have been made in interest rates and loan limits, that banks are willing to lend more at cheaper rates. If we were having this conversation perhaps 10 years ago, we wouldn't be talking about interest rates as low as 4% in the case of NHT. And if you look across the mortgage market, interest rates average at about 7.5%.
Right, up to 8.
Right.
8.
Right. Yeah, 7 to 8. I mean, if you should average them, would probably drop somewhere in the middle, 7.5.
Right.
10 years ago, we were talking about interest rates as high as 21, 23, 25%. So because there's no more financing, or the financing arrangements as it relates to housing are better, vendors have been pushing the envelope, because they say, NHT are going to lend you more. NHT has moved from 4.5 to 5.5 to 6.5. NHT has moved interest rates from as high as 9% down to 4% in the last few years. The banks as well have come down to 7%, and in some instances at 6.9, maybe in the market roundabout now. So vendors in the market understand that, hey, more persons can afford a mortgage. So my $10 million property, I can push it to 13. I can push it to 14. I can push it to 15. And remember that D word, that demand. That we spoke about as well, that it allows them to do that, because me and you probably can't afford it at whatever price they're saying, but trust me, somebody else is going to be able to. Somebody else is going to be able to. So the NHT's loan limit, I know, a sore point for some, but it's a method of balancing the activities in the housing market. So we're not giving to you with one hand, and then you're ended up losing it on the other hand, because prices keep moving outside of your reach.
Okay. All right. So I am happy to, and as I am still stuck at the 0%. So for persons out there who are earning minimum wage, and they are kind of a little bit depressed because your salary is not where you would really want it to be, and you're looking at the housing market and you're saying, oh, I can't. You can. So go into the NHT, have a sit down, talk with someone, and they will help you. They will provide you with guidance. You can get a 0% interest
Can I
rate
make it
for
a
a
little
mortgage.
better? Can I make it a little better for
Yes.
those persons? The NHT also has a home grant of $2.5 million.
Free money.
Free money, a grant you don't have to repay. Again, for individuals at that lower end of the market that earn between minimum wage and $15,000 per week. You've been contributing to the NHT for at least 7 years. You get a home grant of $2.5 million
plus
to top up on your loan
0% interest rate. So you only
and
pay
a 0% more.
what you are borrowing. 0%.
So the next time, Sharika, you hear that NHT don't help poor people, please help me correct them.
Yes, I most definitely
please
will.
Help me correct them.
Most definitely will, because what I have been learning on my journey is that never say never. Go in and have a conversation with someone who is familiar with the process. Go to the NHT, let them know your situation that you are in. You probably can't buy the house this year, but you could possibly buy the house in 2 years. So when you go in and you sit down and you have the conversation, now they will provide you with the map. So you know, all right, in the next year or the next 2 years, this is what I have to do to ensure that in the next 2 years I can buy a house.
It requires research, it requires planning, and it requires commitment. Once you have those 3 variables,
that's it.
Something not gonna happen for you. Trust me.
So for the persons who are watching, don't listen to the naysayers. Don't listen to your own negative mind, because sometimes we can be our own worst critic, you know.
Yes.
You look at the little pay slip and then you just get demotivated. But don't be demotivated. Go into the NHT, carry the pay slip, show it to them, explain to them, and let them help you with the process, and let them help you with what you need to do to ensure you can get the home. 0% plus a $2.5 million free money house grant. Come on, man. Come on, man. You know that here on Just Sharika, we preach real estate and wanting to acquire your own home, because that's one of the biggest achievements we can ever have in this lifetime. Acquiring a property with our name on it.
Yeah, and it opens you to so much more. I mean, your name being on a title, it means you're able to borrow against that. You can send the children to school against that. You can finish your own education against that. It's a security, it's the independence, it's the peace of mind. It's how we build generational wealth, that if every time we're starting over, because mommy or daddy never left anything behind, we'll never advance to anywhere.
Right.
But if it is that if it is that with each generation there's something left behind for them to build on, it may not be the house, it may be just the land alone.
And the land is fine.
And the land is fine. The land is good. Real estate appreciates in value.
Exactly. There's something called land banking. You can save your money in land.
Yes, so don't think any investment in housing is too small. If it is a 1-bedroom you can buy, if that's what your salary says you cannot, buy it. If it's a studio, buy it. If it's land alone, but you can't lose.
You cannot lose.
You can't lose.
And the thing with a lot of young people, Mr. Berbick, I think a lot of, and myself included, and you know, when you just start working, and you know, one of the first things most of us go buy, car. We have to spend money on.
Yes.
Those of you young persons watching the video, we're not saying don't go buy a car, you know, but being of the know that a car is a liability. A house or a piece of land is an asset. The car get cheaper every day, but the value in your house and your land will appreciate. I've never heard about any land depreciate yet. Never. Never. No. Even if it's in the ghetto, the price going up on it. So ensure that you do the right thing. Get a piece of land, get your name on the title, go into the NHT, as Mr. Berbick would have said, you have one of the best customer service. He said it himself, he's bragging on his team, so put his word to the test. Go into the NHT if you can't go in yet because we know it's COVID. Take up your phone and call, and they will
We're on all socials.
And you're on social media, so you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram. So you have no excuse not to do what you need to do to ensure that you acquire the property that you need to get.
Yes.
All right, so we're done preaching. We're going to move on to the next question. So we hope that one get to the persons out there who are watching. So we were speaking about land.
Yes.
So now I'm going to speak a little more about land loan, because I know you offer land loans. So for persons who are not wanting to buy a house, but they want to buy a piece of land, how do they go about acquiring a land loan from the NHT?
Well, it's the same interest rate structure that would apply. So based on where your income is, we assign that interest rate to you, whether it's buying land or a house, it would be the same applicable interest rate. And the maximum amount the NHT lends for land purchase now is $2.5 million. So you can get $2.5 million to purchase a piece of land. And actually, you get to break out your $6.5 million loan limit now in two parts, where you can get $2.5 million for the purchase of the land and $4 million to do construction.
Okay.
And I know sometimes persons I know a lot of persons don't like buy land and build, but trust me, it's cheaper. What you can get with $6.5 million to buy a piece of land and build is far more than what you would say try to get with 6.5 million. And it's not just 6.5, the same is applicable for 8 or 9 or 10 million or whatever the amount is. So I know sometimes persons don't like the construction process and they would rather just buy something ready-made that they see out of the open market. But don't knock it. Think about it. Do your research, and you probably will be able to better stretch that mortgage, or that loan amount rather, if you're purchasing a land and building, than if you're going out there to buy only. And the other variable too, Sharika, is that in Jamaica we have these pieces of land that pass down from great grandfather to grandfather and nobody know nothing with it. So we have these intergenerational lands that just been passing down. Stop the passing down and capitalize and change that from just undeveloped idle land into housing. And the NHT allows, once there's a registered title in place, you don't have to be the title holder. Title can be in a grandpa name, can be in your father name. Once the title holder can put in writing that, hey, I'm giving you legal permission to build on this piece of land, the NHT will secure your $6.5 million mortgage to do that. So you can go straight to construction immediately. And if there's no registered title for the piece of land, still come in and talk to us. The NHT has facilities in place that will help you to move it from unregistered to registered land as well. And if you need financing to do that process, the NHT again will assist you in terms of yes. We have a very good relationship with LAMP. And NLA will assist you with the registration process as well. But you hit the nail on the head. Sometimes we don't look at the options sometimes because we don't do the research. We just see the new apartment going up. We see the new house going up. We want that. We see the price and we say we can't afford it. And we throw our hands in the air and say, hey, nobody can help me. No, there are other avenues that you can pursue. I want to touch on another one real quick, our cluster housing program. So each individual contributor to the NHT is eligible to get a loan of $6.5 million. But the NHT allows a minimum of 3 persons, upward to a maximum of 18 persons, to pool their NHT benefit together and undertake them own little project. So me, Sharika, you, and the sister that you say in the market looking to do something. 3 are we all right? 6.5, me alone can't undertake it. I don't see anything I can buy. Sharika and I are friends, we're co-workers, we're whatever. And her sister, I know who's also interested. So we pooled the 6.5, 6.5, 6.5. My math isn't great, but I think that comes out to about 19.5.
Somewhere there.
Yeah. And we're able now to go out and look for a piece of land, right? Subdivide it. So me get my piece, Sharika get her piece, her sister get her piece. We partition it, we can put our own, separate ourselves.
Yes, yes.
And thereafter, we can hire either one contractor, one architect, one set of service providers who's going to do everything for us. Or Sharika want a 3-bedroom, I just want a 1-bedroom, our sister want a 2-story, whatever. She has a different housing plan. Having divided the land, we can go our individual ways and do our individual construction. So this is called the NHT's cluster housing program. So a minimum of 3 lots, maximum of 9. The piece of land, you can go and buy the land and subdivide it in a minimum of 3, maximum of 9. I will stop at 9 because legally after 9, you're no longer a cluster, you're now a big people category. So we stop at 9. And on each lot, you can have 2 mortgages. So you can have up to 18 persons who can develop those 9 lots using their 6.5 times 18, that's a lot. That's a lot. So everybody and the NHT, as I mentioned, you can break out your loan limit. So you can break out, the NHT will make available 2.5 to each individual to go towards the purchase of the land and to put in the infrastructure. And each individual have their remaining 4 million that they can use for construction. So the housing market, I understand, is not where many of us would like it to be, which means it requires a different thought process, a different kind of innovation, and a different approach to the market. And that's why NHT brought in that cluster program, which is a different approach. One person, we understand, can't go it alone necessarily, but pool your resources in a small space with other persons, subdivide it, build your own little gated community, build out your own little plot that all of you have invested in, and that's priceless. To be able to choose who your neighbors are, to be able to choose where exactly you want
how
to
you
live,
want your development,
how you want your development to look. You set your own rules in there. You put in place your own security arrangements, and over time, you, as a small, little, close-knitted group, make that space how you want it to be. That's priceless. That's priceless. That's truly priceless.
On that, though, Mr. Berbick, is there a cap as it relates to the amount of money that persons have to spend there? Because I know you said a max of 18 persons, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Is there a ceiling in terms of monetary value that the cluster housing program allows persons? So if I see like I don't know if this figure would write, a $50 million, and the 18 of us come together, can afford it. Is there a cap to say, all right, you can't pass 30?
Remember your building. Remember your building. So, and you're breaking out the 6.5 in 2. So remember, each person gets 2.5. So if it's 10 persons, you have 25 million to buy the land.
Right.
And to put in the infrastructure. And then you will have the remaining 4 million each multiplied by 10 persons again. So you have 40 million to do
the building. Right.
So the only cap we have is how you can break out at 6.5. That is 2.5 for the land and 4 for the construction. And we do it that way because we don't want you to spend all the in this case the 65 million. You spend 50 million on buying the land. And then
no money to
buy the land. All 10 I want to stand up and look for the piece of land because I can't build.
Right.
So we want to ensure that when the NHT says you finish the 6.5, that there's a structure that's habitable, that even if it's not complete, it's something you can move in. And you can go on living in the meanwhile until more financing become available. Or you can always pool that with additional financing from elsewhere and to do your construction till you get to where you want to.
So even with the cluster program, I can still access financing from your partners?
we will allow you to exhaust the NHT portion first. If your housing plan says you require X amount more based on, and I'm getting into technical terms, your bill of quantities saying what your building will require more than 6.5. If you can show where you're going to find the shortfall, yeah, man, we will work out something with you.
Bill of quantities. I did a video with a quantity surveyor, so I could just link that for persons who are watching who are not so familiar with quantity surveying and what a bill of quantity is that Mr. Berbick just mentioned.
Which is pretty much an estimate as to what you're doing and how much it will cost, how much material it will take, and how much all this material will cost for you to build what you want to build.
In a nutshell, that is what it is.
Yes.
All right. So a quick question though, as it relates to that, in terms of the application process for both the land loan and the cluster program, from start to finish, can you give an estimated timeline that you have?
The estimated timeline, all right. So NHT has what we call same-day loan approval. So if it is that you come in and you bring in all the documentation and everything is in order, we can approve your loan that day. The mortgage process itself, though, has different moving parts. You start the process at NHT, but the NHT has to interact with NLA, NHT has to interact with the stamp office, it has to interact with titles office, it has to interact with other agencies of government. So the whole mortgage process, generally between when you start and complete, generally takes about 90 days. No hiccups, 90 to 120 days, no hiccups. Can be sooner if all your documents are in order and when the NHT says, okay, bring in this, or you bring in this checklist of documents, have these 10 things you need to bring in. You don't bring in 8 and then wonder why the loan takes so long to process. You need to bring in, everything. And I know that sometimes I need to ensure that I manage the expectation of persons where that is concerned. Those 90 days to 120 days assume that everything is in order. And you provide the documents as requested on a timely basis, and you play your part in terms of furnishing the NHT with the proper documentation, because the process is, as I mentioned, it's not just at NHT alone. We have to also interact with the titles office. We have to also interact with the stamp office and other agencies of government. If you're doing construction, you have to ensure that you have your building plan from the parish council that is approved. You can't just decide, get up today and say, oh, mega build.
No.
You have to build according to a building plan that be approved by a municipal corporation. So different loan types may have different requirements, and it's the speed at which the mortgagor is able, or the prospective mortgagor is able to furnish the NHT with all the checklist requirements. The sooner we're able to do that processing for you. So it's up to the NHT to process it, but yes, you have a big part to play in terms of submitting your documents on time and making sure the documents are correct and are in order.
That's good. So for persons who are listening, you are doing the process or going through the process, ensure that you have all your documents in order, completed properly, and submitted within time to ensure that it is done within that 90 to 120 days. That's what, 3 to 4 months?
3 to 4 months, yes.
So is there a case where you've had persons going over the 120? Is there any legal implications for that?
There are legal implications because it's a legal process. Okay. So you would have signed what we call a sale agreement that says you're committing to complete this process within this specific timeline. But I know that vendors who in the instance where you're buying, vendors are if something genuinely happens, you can always reach out to the vendor and say, hey, I'm having this challenge, give me a little bit more time, and they'll probably give you an additional 30 days or whatever. But it cannot be a long drawn or protracted period because there's uncertainty. So because remember, it's the sale process involves not just the mortgager's deposit and the mortgage fees that they're paying. There are some fees legally that the vendor must also pay. So you have to see from the vendor's side that the vendor is not paying for the transfer to be done and all of those other things, and only to hear that, oh, the mortgage fall through and you're not able to, they would have spent their money. Which is why the deposit is sometimes important. Why vendors require a 5 or 10% deposit, because there are some fees that must be paid by the vendor. And imagine being a vendor and putting your money in it, and then halfway through the process you get a call that says, yo brother, I'm change my mind and I'm gonna do this again. And the vendor's money is tied up in a process you're no longer interested in, which is why a deposit. And I know sometimes persons say, why me I pay deposit? You wicked. I may have to find 10% deposit. It's just the legal process.
It's a surety.
And it's a surety. And it's your commitment to the vendor that hey, I'm in this and I'm in this to see this through to completion.
Shows that you're serious.
Very well.
As some persons might, frown upon it or may struggle to get it, but it's a surety that you are interested and you are serious about what you are doing.
You're quite right, yes.
All right. So I think the next 2 questions I have on the list here, you would have answered them. But just to ensure that the persons who provided me with these questions, to ensure you hear your question and you know that it was answered, it says, what if I already have land? Explain the build and own land process. And you did touch a little bit on that.
So you can get your full NHT loan amount up to 6.5 million to do construction. Once there's land, once there's a registered title for it, it doesn't have to be in your name. The title holder can write and say, I'm giving Sharika permission to do construction on this property, on this piece of land. That's fine for the NHT. We'll make the loan available to you. Of course, you have to make the title available to the NHT so the NHT can register its interest and its security on it. Well, its interest on the security being there. But yeah, the title must be made available. If there's no title, the NHT has different programs that can assist you in terms of having that registered and provide the financing as well. The good thing about build on own land too is that you get a 12-month period before your first mortgage payment is due. So between when you the first disbursement, you have 12 months before your first mortgage payment is due. And you can understand why we do that, because it's construction. You'll probably maybe paying rent somewhere else and not the place isn't moving ready. So we give you 12 months to do your construction before your first mortgage payment is due.
So you live rent-free. You live rent-free, mortgage-free for 1 year.
That's right.
1 full year. That's awesome. That is awesome. So I hope persons out there, you have your land, use it up. Don't just have it sitting down there. You can go to NHT, get a build and own land loan. You get the money to do your construction. You will be living in that house for 1 year, not 1 month, 1 year, mortgage free. That's just awesome. That is just awesome. All right, so this will lead into, I think, we have 3 questions to go. You would have touched on home grant as it relates to the persons with disability and the free money that they will get. Is there any other grant that you have for any other categories of contributors?
No, just a home grant for the the lowest income band, and the disability grant at this point in time.
Okay.
Yes, only those 2 grants at this time.
Okay. All right. So for those persons, as was said before, if you are a low income earner, or if you're a person with a disability, or your parents of a child with a disability, the NHT does provide you with a home grant So you can contact the NHT to find out how you can benefit from that grant. All right. So we're going to. All right, Mr. Berbick. So my next question to you is the CRTD. And I think that's contribution, refund. How you break it down? Refund
Go on, man.
towards deposit. Yes.
You got it. You got it, yes.
Can you break that down for us? What is it?
All right, so CRTD, contribution refunds towards deposit, as you rightfully indicated. It's let me backtrack a little. Let me start at the beginning. So individual makes contribution or makes their contributions to the NHT, or employers make their contribution on the individual's behalf to the NHT, and these become eligible for refund. The NHT holds them for a period of 7 years, and they become eligible for refund in the 8th year. So every year the NHT refunds a year at a time. So in this year, 2021, for example, we would be refunding contributions made in 2013. So under normal circumstances, an individual would only be able to get 2013 and the years prior. We won't go beyond that. However, if the individual is buying a house, the NHT makes 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, we'll keep 2020, but we'll make up to 6 years available to you to assist with different costs that are associated with the purchase. So it can be used to help with your deposit. It can be used to assist with the legal fees. There are some reports, I know you probably would have taken your subscribers through this, the surveyor's ID and valuation reports that they need to get done as part of the sale process, and those costs. So it can be used to offset any of those costs associated with the purchase of a house. And in the case where you're doing construction, one of the requirements is that property taxes must be up to date. And in that case, the NHT will assist, will help allow you to use the CRTD to assist with that as well, and some other costs associated with construction, again, as it relates to fees, etc. So it really is the NHT making your refunds not yet due available to you ahead of time to assist with those costs. And we do that because we understand that many times through the NHT or through other mortgage institutions jointly, individuals are able to secure the necessary 95 or 100% financing, as the case may be, that they need. But then they start the process and then they never remember that you have to pay the lawyer too. You have these fees associated with it. And that's just our way of contributing to the sale process, making it a little bit smoother for you. So, assisting with some of those fees and monies that you have to find upfront as part of the purchase. Some persons always ask me that, what is the catch? There's only one catch.
What's
if
that?
You get your CRTD this year. Next year, when NHT is refunding 2014,
you can't get no refund.
You'd be surprised how people still apply, Sharika. Even though them knows that them get it already, people still apply and then call and say, oh, I haven't gotten any refund and I apply from January 1, midnight, and other people who apply get already and me not get. Sir, ma'am, you got it already.
Right.
You can't get it twice. That's the only the thing, the only catch.
Right.
And really and truly, if you come into the office and you're doing it as a process, they may refer to it as a CRTD loan. And I know some persons sometimes go, what? Is this an additional loan? No, it's not really, because what really happens is that as the refunds become due, it goes over and pays off that portion that is due. So it really is just an accounting principle for us on the inside to refer to it as a loan, because truly that's what we're doing. It's not yet due, so we're giving it to you ahead of time, which means we're lending you. So really and truly, it's just for processing purposes. It's not any additional amounts that you'll have to pay. Once those refunds become due, they are used to offset the CRTD that would have been made available to you ahead of time. Okay,
so on the point of refund though, so for persons who use the CRTD to purchase their home, for those years, those 6 years, when it's due for them to get refund, that they can't get those years again because you would have used it. So they have to wait until those 6 years. So you said you would have started 2013. So when those persons cannot get a refund until the end of like 2021. So when you reach 2021, before those persons will be eligible to get refund. That's correct?
Right. That's correct. That's
okay.
correct.
Okay. So for persons who would have taken refunds in the year, but it was before 2013, and now want this CRTD, they can still access that CRTD from 2013. It would not be a problem because they would have...
Would not be a problem. No, okay. Because it assumes that an individual takes their refund on an annual basis. So you take what is due. So it really only speaks to what is not yet due, which will be the year to come and for the 6 years going forward.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. So it won't cause a problem.
No.
So in terms of the CRTD, how do I apply for that to assist with my deposits? So for instance, I see the property now. Sorry about that. I see the property now and they are taking deposits now. How do I, ensure that I can get the money?
Okay, you have to start the process. That's one. So if it is that it's an open market purchase, you would have had to start bringing in your documents to the NHT, one of them being an important one being your sale agreement. You would have had to start the loan process, because what we don't want to happen is that we make the CRTD available to you and you change your mind and decide, say, you're not about to buy a house and you're not give back the refund, which will lend to you in faith that you're actually going to purchase a house.
Yes.
So you can indicate at a loan application that you intend to use this. And so the different calculations can be factored in as to how much you will actually borrow. But it will be made available to you having started the loan application process, meaning you would have had your sale agreement and you would have at least made the difference of the deposit. So let's say you have 200,000 in CRTD. It's and the 10% deposit that is required is $1 million. You would have to bring in your receipt to say, okay, here's the 800,000 I've paid over to the vendor, and I need the 200,000 I have in CRTD to add to satisfy the full 10% deposit. So it's not done before the process, but indicates at the time you come in to do the loan that you're going to be using your CRTD, and having submitted, as I said, those preliminary documents, your sale agreement, the receipt for the difference, that kind of thing, then the NHT will make it available to you. And it's a similar arrangement with the JFM program. When you go into the partner institution, do indicate to them that you intend to use this amount as well, your CRTD as well, to assist with the sale or the purchase, as the case may be.
Okay, so can I call to find out how much money I have in my CRTD?
You don't have to. The NHT has a mobile app.
Okay.
The NHT has a mobile app.
Okay.
Yes, so when you log into that mobile app, actually, it shows you up to 10 years of contribution data. So it will show you, included in that would be all 10 years amount of contributions that the NHT has received for you. So it will tell you how much we have for you for 2014, 15, 16, so forth. So you can just add it up yourself and you will know just exactly how much I have already in CRTD. So you can better calculate, okay, what's my shortfall is, or I'm going to use the deposit out of pocket, out of savings, and then I'm going to use the CRTD to do the surveyor's ID, the legal fees, the valuation report, that kind of thing. But you can go to the mobile app and it will tell you, so you know exactly how much you have ahead of time.
Okay, again, for those persons who are not so tech savvy, how can I know?
If you're not so tech savvy, you can always give us your pertinent data, your NIS, your TRN, and reach out to us and let us know. We would prefer not, I must say, we would prefer not to give that information over the phone.
Okay.
But we want to ensure that we're talking to Dwayne.
Security reasons, right?
Yeah. But we understand, though, that during this period, where face-to-face contact is really limited to. At the NHT, we only limit that currently to if you're making a payment or if you're coming in to sign. So we even start the loan processing via email now. So you only have to come in one time to do your loan interview and to sign. You don't have to come to NHT with every document every time.
Okay, beautiful.
But in this case, we talk to us. We'll see how we can work around it. We have an email indemnity form, so it could be just a matter of sending that to you, so we can associate a single email account to the individual. And once that individual does the necessary verification to indemnify that email account, then that frees up the NHT legally to be able to start doing business with that identified registered account from the individual. So we can work out something.
Can work it out. All right, beautiful.
Yeah.
So for persons out there who wants to know how much money you have available to you to use from the CRTD, as was said, you can download the app on your phone. You can just use it from the comfort of your home, and you can know how much money you have available to you. If you are not so tech savvy, you can contact the NHT and they will walk you through the process to ensure that you are verified and that your information is secured before they disclose that kind of information. So contact the NHT if you are in doubt or if you're not so tech savvy and you want to get that information. Just a quick question too on the CRTD. I know of persons who would have paid their deposit out of pocket, but would want that money to use for closing fee. Is that available?
Yeah, man, that's available. It's available for that. Any of the costs associated, as I mentioned, to do the reports, to do closing costs, legal fees. Yes, you can use it for those as well.
Okay. And is there a timeline that you're working with that persons need to submit these documents, and then you will hear from us within X time and you will get the money dispersed within X time?
From what I remember off the top of my head, I believe it's a 15-day processing time that we work with between when you put in the application for it and when we disperse that amount. So 15 days.
Okay. All right. So I think we're almost at the end of our interview. And the final question that I have for you, Mr. Berbick, which you would have initially touched on a little bit, because we know that we are in a global pandemic right now, and face-to-face interaction in some business transaction is now limited. So for persons out there who would want certain information, I know you would have mentioned earlier that you can use the mortgage calculator, and now you'd have mentioned that you can use your app. So that's one way that persons can get the necessary information that they need from the NHT, or also you can call and you can email. But are there any other provisions that you have in place given COVID that you are taking that persons need to be aware of?
The main...
Go ahead.
You go ahead.
Right. I was just adding to what I was saying. How can persons come about to ascertain like varying status as it relates to NHT and their personal business that they want to be done?
They can always email our customer contact center at wecare@nht.gov.jm. Can always give us a call, 929-6500. We actually have a branch office in every parish, so you can always reach out to us there as well. We're on all social media platforms. And as I indicated, as it relates to doing some of the transactions and some of the businesses of the NHT, we've moved those services online. So even your loan processing, we'll start the loan process with you via email. Have you submit those documents? We have a Dropbox that we will also share with you, so you can put information there, and we can start the process there to reduce that face-to-face contact. So given COVID, we've moved some of our services online, especially as it relates to some of our loan processing that we start most of it via email, or if individuals can fax in some information, and then we'll just take the verified copies when they come in. We'll ask them just to come in once.
Right.
Just once. You don't have to make many trips to and from the NHT. You'll just come in once to sign. And, you know, that's important because it's a legal process. It's a very important process. So we have to ensure that even though we do business electronically, for some parts of the way, at a point you want to see who Dwayne really is and who Sharika really is, and let them put pen to paper. So down the road they don't hear that, oh, it wasn't Dwayne or it wasn't Sharika. So I know some customers say, but why we still have to come in? You can take electronic signatures. It's a very important legal process, that whole homeowner and that buying process is. So we just ask you to come in just once to do, you know, the necessary signing. Otherwise, individuals can make their request for eligibility letter via weCare@nht.gov.jm, and we are on all socials. We have a branch office in every parish, and we have a great customer contact center that you can always reach out to, 929-6500 or 1-888 NHT.
All right, so I will be leaving all those social media taglines down below and the contact details down below. So if you need to get a hold of the NHT, you know the numbers to call, you know the mediums that you can use, so you have no excuse. So at this point, none at all, Mr. Berbick, none at all. So at this point, I just want to say thank you, Mr. Berbick, for taking the time out of your very busy schedule. I know you had a lot doing today, and you took the time out to sit with us here on Just Sharika to explain this very important process of home ownership. And I just want to say again, for probably the millionth and one time, thank you very much for being here and sharing all of this information with us.
And thanks very much for having me as well. And I hope your subscribers will do indeed find the information useful as they engage on their different home ownership goals. Thanks again.
Thank you too. And I know they will find it to be very informative. So thank you again. And until then, guys, I will see you in my next video. Don't forget to like if you have not done so already. What took you so long? And don't forget to subscribe and become a member of the family. Until then, I will see you all in my next video. Do take care. Bye.